Hi, I'm Dr. McCullough, and thank you for sharing your time with me. Today, I have a very special guest, Lois Brandt. Lois is the author of Maddi's Fridge, a children's book that tackles the delicate subject of childhood hunger while also offering practical solutions. Maddi's Fridge has been universally praised by teachers, librarians, parents, and most significantly, by children. It is the recipient of a 2014 Christopher Award and the International Literacy Association's 2015 Book Award for Primary Fiction. And now, Maddi's Fridge has been turned into a play. It can be seen nationwide beginning in October of this year. Now, when Lois is not working on her own projects, she teaches writers of all ages, helping her students tell the stories that they hold close to their hearts. And most importantly, she's my aunt. Welcome to the program, Aunt Lois.
It's really nice to be here, Susan.
So I love this book because it introduces a difficult topic for children, but it does it in such a gentle manner where you incorporated humor and play and also character building into this story. It was so well done. So tell for all the viewers who have never read Maddi's Fridge, what is Maddi's Fridge about?
So Maddi's Fridge is about a girl who goes to her best friend's house to play, and she gets hungry and she runs into her best friend's kitchen and swings open the refrigerator door and realizes that her best friend doesn't have any food, that there's something wrong and the best friend's family has no food. And her best friend, and that's Sophia, who runs and opens up Maddi's fridge. And so Maddi makes Sophia promise not to tell anybody. So Sophia goes home, and when she's eating dinner and over the next days, she doesn't know what to do because she knows her best friend doesn't have any food. Maddi doesn't have any food, but she also made this promise, and you don't want to break a promise. So the book explores, what do you do?
Okay, yeah, and we won't give away the ending, but it is fantastic. All the way through reading the book to my children, I was thinking, how is she going to end this book? And it was just so poetically done. I loved it. So like I said, this is a very challenging topic to address with children. What inspired you to write this book?
The type of writing I do, realistic fiction, starts from something that happened. And when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I went after school to play at my best friend Liz's house. And it was one of those days, kids and adults remember those days when you go to someone's house and you could just stay there forever. We were just having just the best time. And I got hungry and I said to her, let's grab a snack and then come back outside and play. And she said to me, it's time for you to go home. And I'm like, what? Little girls do get in fights, but we had been just playing nicely all afternoon. And I said, I'm not going home. And I ran into Liz's house and I ran into Liz's kitchen. And I swung open her refrigerator door. And the refrigerator was completely empty. There were condiments in the door, that I still remember that. But the shelves were empty except for one small carton of milk. And at that time, the only way you got that carton of milk was through we didn't even have school lunch. Our school was so poor, but we had a school milk program. And it occurred to me that Liz was bringing home milk for her baby brother, who was 3 or 4, but not old enough for kindergarten. So that was the only milk he was getting, was what she was bringing home from her, from that milk program. And it just shocked me. That's, you'd heard about, poor people in other countries, but this is the United States of America. And that story stayed with me. It was a lifelong image, that empty refrigerator. And one day I wrote the story.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you did, because the statistics shocked me too. And you cited in your book that 1 in 5 children in the United States actually goes hungry. Yeah. I thought the same thing when people would talk about children in need and children starving. I always picture third world countries, and part of that's because we see ads on television about helping those countries. But I didn't actually think that 1 in 5 children in the United States was going hungry.
That's what really shocked me when this book came out. I had prepared myself because I was, going to do school visits as an author, and I had prepared myself, and I talked to counselors. What if a child comes up to me and says, "I'm hungry. What do I do?" But the school is actually really good about that, and often they read the book before I arrive, and so those questions never really come to me. But the thing that shocked me was the number of adults that came to me and told me that either as a parent, they had an episode where they couldn't provide food for their children, or as a child, they remember growing up in a period where, mom or dad lost a job, and they were really, really stretched for food. And it's those stories that continue. I just have people coming up to me all the time, really stick with me and showed me that this isn't just a percentage. This is people like you and me, who found themselves in a horrible situation and needed help.
Yeah, I think that's so shocking to me, because most of the time we think that it's not going to be us, right?
Yeah.
Right. I've planned, I've educated myself. I've made preparations. It's not going to be me, but you're saying that it could be you.
So one of the things that happened to me early on, so before this book won any awards, before we knew that it was going to do extremely well, someone in my school district had bought a copy for every school. So I went to the school district office, and I was going to sign copies. And this is like the first time I'm signing my name in my book. This is my first book. I'm very excited. And the school secretary, the district secretary, comes up to me and says, "Well, I wanted you to know that I tried to read your book and I couldn't." And, I was like, great, I've written a book and it's a picture book and people don't even get through it. And she goes, "I started crying so hard." And she said, I'm going to get teary-eyed talking about this, but then she says, and then I tried to call my daughter, who's an adult, tell her about your book. And I was crying so hard, I had to hand the phone to my husband, who said, "Your mom's okay, but there's this book." And she said that when her girls were small, she had 2 girls who are now adults. Sorry to get teary-eyed when I talk about this stuff. That there was a period where she had no money. She was really struggling. And so all she could do was, they got school lunch at school, but all she could do for breakfast and dinner was give them pancakes. And it was like, "Oh, isn't this fun? We get to have pancakes," and that was all she could afford for like almost a 6-month period. And I am talking to this woman who is now successful, has a job, very stable. Her daughters are doing great, who is brought to tears 20 years later.
Wow.
And she is just like you and me,
Wow, that's remarkable. That really puts a face to the issue, brings it closer to home.
Yeah. I think there's some shame associated with it, and Maddi's Fridge deals with that. And so people don't tell these stories. Some of the people who come up to me and talk to me, after I've had talked, or sometimes at schools, it's teachers, who talk about it, I have the impression it's the first time they're telling somebody.
Wow.
So just very powerful. I think it's there, and I think it's hidden. And I think it's our job kind of to reach out to people and tell them that we'll help them out.
And that's one thing I love about your book, is that it provides practical solutions. And these are solutions that we can actually do with our children, get our children involved in it in a positive light.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that these are local solutions. But before we get into these practical solutions,
Okay.
I do want to ask you, because a lot of times when I bring up this issue to people and inform them about the children who are going hungry in the United States, and that it could be your neighbor down the street or the person who's sitting next to you at church, I ask them, okay, well, here's some solutions of how we can help. A lot of times the response I get back is, well, I pay taxes to help those people. And those are federal programs put in place, like food stamps and the school lunch program. So they're taking care of it. Why should I have to do more? And what would you say to that?
I think that the first thing to remember is that these are our friends and neighbors. These are people just like us. I mean, I was raised with the phrase, and I heard my parents repeat it, and it never made sense to me. My dad would see someone homeless on the street, and he would say, "There but for the grace of God go I." And I'm like, successful businessmen and homeless guy, what's the relationship here? But I think that we, and I am, a religious person, I think we have an obligation to help our neighbors when we see them and not put it off to the next person or put it off to the government. And also the thing to remember, especially with childhood hunger, is that it's mostly people with young children. And, you have to have someone home taking care of the children and somebody working. And the other, and so these people dip into poverty and they just need a little help. Just this woman whose story I told, it was 6 months, probably the 6 worst months of her life. And she just needed some help. So I think that's the thing to remember, is that we have a kind of a moral obligation to help people no matter what else is out there. And I think that those programs right now, at least in many states, are inadequate. And so you can't walk by and say it's someone else's problem when it's your neighbors. It's an invisible problem, but these are our neighbors.
Yeah, I completely agree. And anyone watching this video has probably read my book and read my blogs. And so, as you know, I'm a strong constitutionalist. So I believe that the local people should help the neighbors. And there's a biblical principle to this: love your neighbor, as yourself.
Yeah.
Great lesson to teach your children. And so from my perspective too, look what's happened with the school lunch programs, that, they're giving children food. So at least they aren't going hungry for that meal, but look at the quality of food that they're giving to the children, thanks to the Farm Bill. It's making the children sicker. So while they're not starving, we're feeding them foods that are getting them sicker. So I agree that we have an obligation to them. I think it's better to bring it down to the local level and really apply that biblical concept of loving your neighbor like yourself. And what a great way, a great character quality to teach your children, which is why I love these solutions that you give in the book. So could you share with us some of the solutions that you have discovered on your journey?
So I'm going to talk about 2 things: what families can do, and then I'm going to talk about what parents can do. So what families can do, and you'll see in the back page of Maddi's Fridge, I don't know about you, but we, sit down, my husband and I, and we write checks to charity. Once a year we figure out what charities we're giving to, and that's what we're supposed to do as good people. But that's not something that a kid can wrap their head around. And so it's good to kind of set up a program of giving that the kids can be involved in. When you go to the supermarket, can you pick up just 1 can each time to take to the food bank, and put it in a pile for the food bank and then take your trip to the food bank together? Or can you volunteer at the food bank? I volunteered at our local food bank with my son. And so the first thing that families do, something together, to help. And this sounds so simple, but it's such a biggie. And especially any of your subscribers who have teenagers will know, they're eating machines. So when other kids come over, healthy, nutritious snacks, something that's going to just make sure that kids are fed, because this is an invisible problem. And especially when you get the older kids, the teenagers, I don't think they get enough good food no matter where they go. And so just make sure that you are one of those households that is feeding children who come in. Parents, and since you mentioned the Bible, but I'll just say all religions have the same charge, and that is to help those, who have less than us. And so one of the ways to do this is to really, first of all, pay attention. In the Christian tradition, there's the story of the widow at the temple, who, if you remember, everyone else is giving lots of money and the widow has just 1 coin and gives it. But if you look at the beginning of that scripture, the first thing Jesus says is, pay attention, watch. So the first thing that you can do as a parent is just to pay attention in your community and teach that to your children. Look around, who needs help. And then the second thing is just be a role model. Don't tell your kids to give or tell your kids to volunteer. and do fun volunteering. You can volunteer anywhere, but you get to know a lot of different people, and that gets you out in the community, and the kids realize that they are part of a community, and that it's just so important to raising ethical children.
Yeah, I love that, because it is, as a parent myself of young children, it is difficult to get them to care about causes like childhood hunger. I mean, I know I have a hard enough time getting them to pick up their toys, you know, in their room, let alone get them to care outside of their world, you know. So is that your advice to parents, to try to motivate your children to care about something bigger than themselves? Is the advice, the number one advice, to model the behavior?
Is to get out. And I know how busy I was, you know, with Cece's sister last month. I thought, wow, you know, little kids, you get so busy. So I know how busy the parents are. And so don't make this a huge burden, you know, not like every day talk about those. Just set up just once a month or something that your family can do together, and just you will get great rewards. But don't make it a big burden on your family. Make it fun. Figure out how to make it fun for everybody. And picking up toys, you know, eventually they get it.
When they step on them enough times that they break them with their feet, they get it. Yeah, no, and we're going to wrap up, but I love what you're saying. I love that concept of modeling the behavior as well, and not making it a burden. With young children in particular, we do feel overwhelmed and stressed a lot. But I also wanted to add into that I'm a big proponent of wherever you put your energy and your focus, that it grows. So I found this in my health journey when I was really sick. There was a time when I was so sick, I was so self-consumed.
Yeah.
And you know, and you just fall into that because you're trying to put so much effort into getting yourself to feel better, and you feel horrible. And when you focus on something that's negative, like, oh, I'm so sick, or oh, I have so many bills to pay, or oh, I have to run the kids here and there, my schedule's overwhelmed. When you constantly focus your energy on it, the negative will continue to grow.
Yeah.
And so I found it in my journey very healing for me to shift my energy, shift that focus to something positive. And like you said, we started out with something very simple. We donated bags of dog food to our local animal shelter just once a month, and the whole family, including my husband, would go down and donate the dog food. And I'm telling you, it was a small, simple gesture, but it shifted all of our energy. And you can tell for that entire day, we were happier. The kids didn't fight as much that day, and we felt like giving more. And the more we focus on giving and doing something positive, less we focus on our problems, the less our problems seem to even exist. They seem to almost start to dissolve when you focus on the positive.
Well, this circles back to one of your first questions about, I pay taxes, why should I do this? Because it's really good for your family to reach out to the community. It builds you up, it builds your community up. It's just such a positive experience, you know. So it's just another answer to that question. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this has been fantastic. I know you're a busy person, so I thank you so much for your time. How can people get a copy of Maddi's Fridge, and how can they get tickets to the play?
So the easiest thing to do is to go to my website. So my name is Lois Brandt, and my website is loisbrandt.com. And I will have a list up there of the play. It's in, you know, various states in the country. And the book is available on Amazon and at bookstores, so it's pretty easy to get.
Okay, and I encourage all my readers, all my subscribers and my readers, please grab a copy of this. Great way to introduce this difficult, challenging topic to your children. It's fun, it's lighthearted, and you're going to love the ending. All right, thank you so much, Aunt Lois.
Oh, it's just so fun to chat with you.
Great. All right, everybody have a beautiful day.
Okay, bye-bye.